Who would want to follow that? Oh, Gene Sykes, CEO of LA 2028. I say that as a joke, Gene, because over the course of the last few years, with Gene leading the bid to win the Olympic and Paralympic Games for Los Angeles, I've had the chance to see some of the lobbying and the presentations put forward by LA. The last one I saw was in Denmark, in Aarhus, which was over a year ago now, at a point at which LA and Paris were technically still fighting it out. And I can say unequivocally, it was just a brilliant presentation. It was technically very smart and slick, the speakers were great, but it was full of excitement. For me, that was just pucker. So, Gene, it's great to have you here. I hand over to you as we learn a bit more about the community power of an Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Thank you, David, for that kind introduction. And thank you to Monsignor Melchor Sanchez de Toca y Alameda of the Pontifical Council for Culture, as well as the rest of the Sport of the Service of Humanity Foundation for inviting me to say a few words. Thanks also to West Coast Conference, the LA 84 Foundation, and of course, Loyola Marymount University for bringing this event to life. It's an honor to be here alongside so many leaders of sports, education, and faith communities to discuss the power of sport to affect positive social change and promote universal human values. As you know, last September, LA was officially awarded the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. We're thrilled that the 2028 Games will be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape the future of our city and to use sport to unite our communities, our country, and the world. Now, these sound like lofty goals for a sporting event, but as we've heard throughout this conference, including from this last panel, sport has the potential to transform. In my time as CEO of LA 2028, I've seen firsthand how the power of the Olympic and Paralympic Games actually transcends sport. A few months ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Games. Without question, the highlight for me occurred at the Paralympic Games, where I was asked to award the medals for the men's sitting cross-country sprint. American athletes won both the gold and bronze medals, and both of them were veterans who are double amputees after injuries in Afghanistan. It occurred to me as I awarded these athletes their medals that we were celebrating much more than just their athletic ability, but also their courage, their resilience. Sport had given these men a way to demonstrate their courage all over again by becoming two of the world's most exceptional athletes. The experience reinforced for me what a tremendous opportunity it is for us to organize the Paralympic Games in Los Angeles in 2028. And it reminded me of the unique power of the Games, the power to bring people together, to highlight the best of humanity, and to inspire people to believe that nothing is impossible. Of course, this is not a new idea for Angelenos. 2028 will be LA's first time hosting the Paralympic Games, but LA has played a big role in the history of the Olympic movement, and vice versa. The Games are actually a map of the history of Los Angeles. In 1932, the LA Memorial Coliseum, of course, was the principal facility that hosted the Games, but the Coliseum was inspired by the possibility of hosting the Games before they were actually awarded. When the city was awarded the Games, the city leaders said, well, we have to beautify the city. So they planted tens of thousands of palm trees as a job creation effort. And of course, you see these palm trees today. They tower over the streets of the city. Some of you may know that 10th Street was renamed in honor of the 10th Olympiad. Of course, it's Olympic Boulevard. And in the teeth of the Great Depression, these games in 1932 produced a surplus. In 1984, I was lucky to be here for the Games. I saw rowing, which is one of my favorite sports, at Lake Casitas, track and field, of course, at the Coliseum, and the incredible and diverse art of the Cultural Olympiad. Most importantly, I saw what these games did for the people of Los Angeles. Angelenos were incredibly enthusiastic to host the world, united in showcasing the best that our city had to offer. For a diverse and dispersed city, the Games brought us together, and that doesn't happen very often. These privately run, privately financed Games were a tremendous success. They produced a $200 million surplus. They restored the enthusiasm worldwide for the Olympic movement, endowed both the International Olympic Committee and the U.S. Olympic Committee for years to come, and launched the LA 84 Foundation, which I'm sure you've heard quite a bit about at this conference, but that alone has served 3 million young Angelenos through youth sport. The LA 2028 approach was guided by the same principle, and in fact by some very straightforward advice from Peter Ueberroth, who said, make sure you take in more money than you spend. Now that seems obvious, but few of the Games over the past several years since '84 have actually adhered to that principle. But LA 2028 intends to be the same private enterprise approach that worked in 1984. Taxpayer funding has never been an option for us, and if it was, we wouldn't take it. Our contract with the City of LA means we have a responsibility to steward a smart, sustainable, and responsible Games, Games that fit our city, instead of trying to fit our city to the Games. We're relying on what we already have, not costly or complicated construction projects. LA 2028 requires no new permanent venues, housing, or infrastructure. Every competition venue either exists, is planned by private investors, or will be temporary. And think of what we have. We're unique in the world in many ways. Our Olympic and Paralympic Village will be at UCLA. It already exists. We have a media village at USC that already exists. We have iconic venues that have served the Olympics and other sporting events for years. The LA Memorial Coliseum, the Rose Bowl, the Staples Center at LA Live, the StubHub Center, the Long Beach waterfront. We have stunning natural beauty. Beach volleyball will be in Santa Monica, at Santa Monica Beach, where beach volleyball began. Our road cycling, which is a great event, will showcase other LA natural jewels in the Santa Monica Mountains and Griffith Park. And of course, we have state-of-the-art sports venues which are under construction or development today, including the LA Stadium at Hollywood Park and the newly completed Bank of California Stadium where the LA Football Club plays at Exposition Park. And while LA is undergoing the biggest public transportation revolution in the country. As many of you know, LA County voters last year approved Measure M, which provides $120 billion over 40 years for transit projects that enhances our region's mobility. LA's investment in public transport happens regardless of the Games, and every game venue will be connected by enhanced modern public transport links. So with no new permanent construction to worry about, and more than a decade to plan the Games, that's also completely unique, we have an unprecedented opportunity to focus on delivering a spectacular Games and in redefining how hosting the Games can benefit host communities and really put sport at the service of humanity. So we're going to do this in 4 ways. First, we intend to use the Games to spark volunteerism to serve our communities for generations to come. LA 84 was the first Games to rally so many volunteers, 30,000 volunteers, which were vital to organizing the Games. This has been the model for every Olympic and Paralympic Games since then. Last year, our bid made Olympic history. We were the first people to actually have a volunteer engagement during the bid. We asked people to volunteer in other community projects and enlist to be volunteers if we won for the 2024 Games. We signed up more than 20,000 volunteers during the bid phase without anything for them to do except make sure that they did something else in the community and registered their interest. And by the way, half of these volunteers don't even live in Los Angeles. Our LA 2028 volunteers cleaned the LA River. They cleaned our beaches. They helped sort fruit at the LA Regional Food Bank. They staffed the LA Marathon. Delivering the 2028 Games will require tens of thousands of Games time volunteers, and they will help us foster a culture of volunteerism that will serve LA well into the future. Secondly, we intend to use the Games and sport in general to unite us and celebrate our diverse communities. We will host many of the marquee Olympic and Paralympic Games events in South LA, a part of the city that doesn't get the attention of Silicon Beach or downtown. But with track and field at the Coliseum, swimming, and gymnastics, all taking place in South LA venues, the eyes of the entire world will be on those communities. The opening and closing ceremonies will actually be split between the new NFL stadium in Inglewood and the Coliseum, the best of the old and the new, with a torch relay parade in between those two venues and a headline role for the communities that connect them. Beyond South LA, LA 2028 will also be the first time the San Fernando Valley hosts Olympic and Paralympic events, which they did not do in 1984. We intend, thirdly, to take advantage of our historic agreement with the IOC to invest in youth sports programs to allow more of our community to benefit from participation in organized sports. The IOC is supporting an investment of up to $160 million in the 10 years leading up to the Games by our organizing committee. This investment will be to support youth sports programs in the years before the Games and to bring an Olympic legacy to the city right away, rather than waiting until after the Games. We want this expansion of youth sport to make LA the healthiest city in America. And if we're lucky, some of those kids who play sports in programs supported by LA 2028 today will be Olympic or Paralympic competitors in 2028. Finally, we intend to use the global platform of the Paralympic Games to demonstrate the inclusive power of sport. Candace Cable, who was in our last group, was a key member of our bid committee, and she really guided our entire team to understand the power of the Paralympics. We had the opportunity to visit the 2016 Paralympic Games in Rio, and we saw that the atmosphere at the stadiums and arenas was just magical. It's a remarkable family feel at the Paralympics. The events have a different type of experience than the Olympic Games do. In some ways, the events are actually more memorable. Spectators were there to celebrate competitors as athletes, not as individuals with disabilities. See, Paralympians are highly relatable in a way that Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps, as much as you might admire them or be awed by their incredible performances, are not. It's much easier to appreciate what it takes for someone to overcome a debilitating limitation, and you admire the highest level of athletic performance at the same time. The Paralympic Games is a tremendous opportunity. At LA 2028, we want to fulfill its potential. I might remind you and remark that in our community today, we have one of the great Paralympic events, the Angel City Games at UCLA, actually starts today. In fact, my son is volunteering there, and I encourage as many of you as possible to see the Angel City Games at Drake Field and around the rest of the campus at UCLA, which continue through the weekend. In LA County, there are more than 600,000 people with disabilities. The unemployment rate among this community is much higher than among the rest of the community. If we can use the Paralympic Games to bring much more attention and interest and insight into this community, we'll have served a great, great service. So we intend to host a Paralympic Games that fosters the celebration of people with disabilities as individuals who overcome challenges, not as hard luck stories, and fosters genuine inclusion and understanding. These 4 objectives are a tall set of objectives, but the Olympic and Paralympic Games demand no less from us. It's now up to us to write the next chapter of LA's Olympic history together. LA 2028 is going to be one of those rare experiences that bind our diverse communities closer together, just like the '84 Games did. We'll generate a new sustainable sports legacy for the future of many American sports fans. We'll bring our diverse neighborhoods, our nation, and world together through the unique power of the Olympic and Paralympic Games to inspire and change the world. And we'll reimagine what it means to put the Olympic and Paralympic Games at the service of humanity. I thank you very much for your interest, and we look forward to seeing you in 2028.